Greetings, beloved friends. So, continuing this discussion about the awakening process. So, I want to make it clear that there are many stages and levels to the awakening process, and it's kind of that's what it is. It's a process. It's an ongoing thing. So, and there's no really it's not a comparison between individuals because everybody is waking up in their own way and at their own pace and on their own terms. So that's all fine. And I'm only sharing this because I'm going through the process also. And, part of the process is, wanting to facilitate and help your fellow humans and, kind of wake up from this collective sleep that we've been in. Um, so yeah, I want to make it clear that like the purpose of these videos, the intent behind them, is to kind of facilitate the awakening experience, and to kind of help raise the your vibration and help you feel more empowered and to heal your energy field. So just kind of as a recap of the last few videos, like the first step of awakening is the oh shit moment, where you kind of wake up to the fact that you have been giving your power away, and that like you're basically living a conditioned reality, and that you know you're not who you've been told you are. You're way more vast. Um, but the only thing is that you are still in your present situation. So it's kind of like waking up to the fact that you're a prisoner. It's not a comfortable experience. It's not pleasant. Like the initial step one of the awakening process is it can be a little ego shattering. But that's really what kind of this whole movement into this new paradigm is about. It's kind of like letting go of the ego, um, and its need for control, and its demands that it be, um, you know that it's this unchanging real thing. Um, when in reality, the ego is it's like a house of cards that you, you need to kind of keep building up and knocking down every once in a while as it outgrows its worth, or as it becomes outdated. Um, and so you're not the ego. You're the you're the thing. You're the beings creating. You're not the house of cards. Basically, you're the individual setting up the house of cards. That makes sense, and knocking down the house of cards. So you're ma- you're making all these transformations, but the real you is the you that stays constant throughout all of this. So, and that's the unchanging I, the witness, the pure consciousness, awareness. So, and that's kind of like that just emanates through all living beings, and it is one awareness. Awareness is one. That's the whole idea of oneness, is that awareness or consciousness is like an emanation, and it emanates through all life in various ways, anything that's old. And it actually, their matter itself is really contained within this consciousness field. So, the old paradigm is kind of this idea that, um, consciousness kind of sprung from matter as a kind of accidental, or you know, just basically like a coincidence, um, and so that consciousness is contained within the kingdom of matter. It's a product of matter. And the new paradigm is basically just kind of flipping that on its head and saying there's only consciousness, there's only this awareness field. And in that field, there's every possible quantum playing out of every scenario ever made. Um, Anything that could be thought of in every uh, correlation and every playing out to the smallest detail. It's there. It exists as a potential, as a field of potential, and maybe and beyond that. So, but this field, this undifferentiated oneness of being, it it's basically the infinite unmanifest. It's the everything and the nothing. It's but because it's all things, it's absolutely pregnant with possibility. And so, but it's undifferentiated. It's one. It's so how can oneness know itself when it's just one? How can this one awareness gain any self-awareness of itself, because there's nothing to compare it to. It's undifferentiated. So the only way that this awareness can know itself is to kind of purposely constrict its awareness, confine its awareness into a differentiated reality. So it basically like collapses the waveform of probability into a particle. And that's anything that becoming. That's it's like imagine a lamp, right? Or a really some kind of really bright light that you have, and you take a lampshade that completely covers it all the way around. But the lampshade, it's a black lampshade, right? The lampshade has these little pinholes all throughout it, right? So when you have the light by itself, it's just all one. When you put the veil or the whatever the lampshade on it, the light is separated out into all these various beams that are coming out of it. So from the outside, it looks like there's many lights, right? Um, but really, the source of all those many lights is the same. So even though from the outside it appears that there's these many different things, it's all really one. So that's kind of like the best way analogy I can use for like how how that works with how the consciousness, the oneness of consciousness becomes the many of the multitude of being of of nature. um, so and actually the nature or the world is that lampshade put over consciousness. What the reality that is all around here, this three-dimensional reality, that's what the ancients called Maya, the illusion. It's the thing that is put over consciousness, that fragments consciousness out into these many seemingly separate, individualized compartments of consciousness reality that all now get to interact with one another. And I think that's the key thing about all this, is that consciousness, awareness, God, whatever you want to call it, does this in order to have those interactions. So it kind of has to purposely fall asleep and forget that it's the oneness of being, so that it can have these interactions with itself and thus learn about itself. And that's what any interaction you have is. Anytime you are looking at another living being, that's basically, this oneness, God, whatever you want to call it, looking at itself in the mirror. So you you know when you walk outside, the first person you see and you look them in the eye, that's God looking at itself in the mirror. Yeah, some people don't like the word God, so source, or totality of being, whatever you want to call it. It's just like whatever works for you, that's fine, use it. But it's just still the same idea that there's this one awareness, and so that one awareness is what is lighting your reality field. It's like it's emanating through you. So if you but the ego is kind of like like a if pure conscious awareness is emanating through you, through that hole in the veil. The ego is like this is like putting your thumb on that stream coming through and blocking it. So basically, the the bigger the ego, the smaller amount of pure awareness is coming through. So the smaller the ego, the wider that hole becomes, when more and more awareness can come through, more pure awareness, more pure spirit. Um, so that's why people who have huge egos are basically, you know, living in the dark. They're getting a really small idea of who they are, because really, like, they think that they're this they have this concept of who they are that's basically like that big, of like they're they don't realize that they're infinite. Like, that's whatever that thing that they think they are is just the smallest nothing little aspect of this larger thing that they are. So, like, this awakening process is moving from that small little nothing aspect of ego identification to identifying with the vast infinite oneness of being that you are, and aligning with that, because all life emanates from the same source, but not all life is aligned with that source. So this is about moving into alignment with the source of your being. And the energies that are about right now are basically, there was a major shift recently, and it's like what used to work isn't going to work anymore, because we've outgrown this. We're expanding beyond a lot of the structure. So we're of the old reality that served its purpose at a time, but is now is just like it's just out of date. It's like an old computer program. It's just like we're getting like these upgrades in how we perceive things, and part of that is waking up to our own individual connection with source. And when you make that connection, that inner connection with source, with inner awareness, and that expanding idea, you kind of awaken to the fact that it's a remembrance. This is it's remembering what you've always known, you know, and kind of reconnecting with that, and like this idea that we kind of fell off the path for a bit, and now it's like realigning, coming back to this remembrance, this of things of what is known. And that making that adjustment and bringing that extra awareness and that expansive awareness is it's realizing also that there's as many realities as there are people to make them or souls to make them. So and that this infinite awareness is perceiving reality through all of those individualized realities. So there is no one, like the one truth is that all truths are true. That's the absolute truth, is that being perceives through all being. So everybody's truth is true. But it's really about what kind of reality do you prefer to have? Would you prefer to have? Because basically, if you're living out of alignment with your soul's true purpose, you're gonna feel it now. That's what's going on. It's gonna not feel comfortable. It's not gonna whatever you're doing. It's not gonna feel good, or it's gonna fall apart, and it's gonna be kind of taken away. Um, and it's not an easy process. It can be painful. Um, it's like the ego shattering experience. Like it's not fun, but it's through those experiences that we grow, and it's through like every time the house of cards comes down, you learn to build it a little stronger. And it's almost and like it's only as painful as to the degree that you are attached to that thing that is you know falling apart, whether be it your ego or um, any kind of external circumstance or your idea of yourself or a relationship, a job, just any number of things. So as long as you're not attached to any form that something takes, then you can kind of you move and you allow that uncomfortable experience to happen, and that tension that is created, you know, of that feeling of living out of alignment with your soul's true purpose. That's the tension of the slingshot. So sometimes you have to go back a little bit. That creates the potential for this blast off. So if you're experiencing a lot of breakdowns right now, things breaking down, you know, start to see them as opportunities for breakthrough, opportunities where you can really like let go of things that are holding you back, and really start to step into your true purpose. I think that's kind of like the main some of the main uh, message of the energies these days is is like really taking a step back from the narrative that you're manifesting, and having an honest look at it, and an honest look at whether or not it's aligned with what you want. Because I think a lot of people, they think that they're obligated to all these external things, and so we stay in these modes of thinking, these realities that aren't serving us, and are just outmoded, and are basically, you know like we've moved beyond it internally, but we feel like we've put so much time into this thing, and we're just like holding out for it, but it's like now it's time to be like really go inward and like face the facts, because if you're not being true to yourself, if you're not living your own truth. So, and you have to realize that basically you have no obligation to anyone, no to any external. Your only obligation is to your eternal soul and your soul's true purpose here. And the only way you're going to be able to figure that out is to go inward and to honestly assess your life and how you're living and your relationships and like to do the inner work. That's what the inner work is. It's bringing awareness. It's like making your like lucidly living instead of like just sleepwalking. It's like bringing full awareness to what's going on. And it's like if you're trying to change your life externally, but you're not doing the internal work, it's just not gonna work. Like that's the I think another fundamental lesson is like you do the inner work, you make the inner changes that are necessary, and then your external reality will will mirror those changes. So, it's like there's it's a popular idea, but like, if you're looking at like your reality is a mirror. So if the person in the mirror isn't smiling, is frowning, you can't go up and try and force the reflection in the mirror to smile. Like you have to smile, and then your reflection will smile. So you have to raise your vibration, and then your external reality, the circumstances will mirror that change. So, just bringing more and more and more awareness, and awareness is love. So it's all related. Like when you bring something into awareness, you have love and like an understanding for it. You bring it out of the darkness that you were kind of putting it in. It's like moving out of this repression kind of mind state and just moving into this full embracing mind state. And so, um, and like that's what love is. So, like a foundation of love is looking at all all being as self, and therefore, and so love is conscious sameness. Love is seeing is self-recognizing self. That's what love is. It's not this. It's not this like interpersonal romantic thing that we've been fed. It's just not. It's like that's a reflection of it, but it's beyond. It's necessarily beyond that. It's transcendental. It's like love is. It's the fabric that holds together the many and the one. So this is this is all a return to to source awareness, basically. Um, so basically, you know, how is any of this? You might be asking, how is any of this empowering? What is so what? What's the big deal? But I think that the answer is that like when you awaken to the fact that you basically are manifesting what you believe, and you realize that your power is in your perception, in like the way that you're looking at something. That's where your power is, right? Because if you change the way you're looking at something, the thing you're looking at changes, right? So if you want to change yourself, you have to change the way that you're perceiving yourself, the way you're looking at yourself. You have to like expand. You have to start thinking outside the box and start thinking about other ways of seeing it. If you want to change the world, you have to change how you're looking at the world, how you're perceiving it. That's like at the core of it. So you make that fundamental change, and then the thing you're looking at changes. Your world changes. So okay, this has been a really long video, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I will hopefully be posting more. Namaste.